So I'm not a huge sci-fi fan, but I do get into some sci-fi shows once in a while. I definitely have a weakness for the DC superhero shows, and I have a couple poems coming out in a anthology of sci-fi poetry by Dimensionfold Press, and that's called Eccentric Orbits is the name of the anthology. And one of the poems I have in there is called The Flash, which is based on my knowledge of the Flash from comic books and the DC show. But the other one that's coming out in there is also called the Cylon Poem. And I think people are probably a little bit less familiar with Battlestar Galactica unless you're like a real sci-fi person. So Battlestar Galactica was made, I want to say in the 60s. But it was also remade again in the 90s, and I watched the 90s version, and it inspired a poem called the Cylon Poem. I'm going to read that for you now. So the Cylon Poem. To know the face of God is to know madness, said one little god to another. But what is God really? Do you find it in the space between life and death? Does it all really mean more because of death and that tiny space? What does it mean to breathe, to inhale these ephemeral experiences that continue to add to one another through the process of choice until they add up to a life? What is right and wrong if everything is determined or undetermined by simply going right or left? But is choice an illusion? One little god spoke softly. If this has happened before, and it will all happen again?